Welcome to the Certificate in Basic Animal Care Science. I'm Liv, and let's see what's coming up in this week's show.
This week we get up close and a little too personal with some of the biggest and baddest of the cat kingdom. We find out just how to get these guys to behave at the doctor. Toby talks to us about Orana Zoo School. Then it's over to some of the most curious looking pooches for a feeding frenzy. But first, we step into a cheetah enclosure with head keeper of exotics, Graham.
Cheetahs don't necessarily see us as prey more than the other animals. Why is that?
We're big.
Okay.
We can look after ourselves. We can fight back. They're like most predatory animals. They want surprise. That's when the burst of speed kicks in, trip their prey up. And they tend to suffocate by closing the throat off. They don't have a very strong jaw or very long canines in there. Whereas a lion and a tiger can basically paralyse an animal with a bite to the back of the neck or to the spine itself. So this animal here really, when Gizmo's fully grown, he could get up to 50 odd kilos. Gemma's never going to be that big. You can see she's quite slighter than him, her head's a lot smaller.
So about their paws, tell me what's different between a cheetah paw and a lion paw?
Well, the claws are really on a cheetah are quite unique. They are probably best described like a pair of running shoes. They are permanently stuck out. Quite blunt, but when they're a lot younger, they're quite sharp.
So you've attracted his attention now. Now,
yeah,
while we're on the physical side, tell me about his mane here. Well, it obviously doesn't have the lion mane, but
no.
I noticed that when we took him through for the breeding and enrichment exercises that the males were just stuck right up. What's going on there?
Just makes them look bigger and nastier than what they really are, more than anything else.
Right.
Some individuals can keep it their whole life, some won't. He possibly will not have much of it left by the time I've finished teasing it out here. It gets quite itchy.
Okay.
Yeah, because you can feel it, touch him across the cheek.
He's going to let me do it?
Yeah, he's fine with us today.
Okay.
Yeah. He's come over on his terms. We've stood here in the corner of his enclosure quite quietly, and he's come over and interact with us, and we'll just let him walk off if he wants to leave.
Yeah. Now, is there anything else physically that aids a cheetah in the wild?
The whole animal entirely, really. When you look particularly at the anatomy,
Oh, sorry, babe.
right, anatomy of the head, you see those very large forward-facing eyes. Everything's side-orientated for a cheetah. Very large nasal passages to get as much oxygen into that big deep chest that he has there, so he's got a good set of lungs, great heart on him. The feet we were talking about earlier with the running shoes like spikes, great for gripping the ground, turning the corners. He physically does not need claws like a normal cat to hang onto its food or to climb. He needs them to grip the ground. He has a very sharp one on each front leg called a dew claw. It's hidden by here at the moment, and they use that like a thumb to hang onto the food when they have caught hold of it, or to hang onto each other or whatever. The spine on a cheetah can be best described like a very large spring when they're running, and when you see when you see them in full flight, they can actually, their front legs are overtaken by their back legs, and they stretch right out, and you can step out anything between 5 to 6 metres between the feet hitting the ground.
Now, with that kind of I suppose recoil, we're saying spring, how fast can these guys get up to?
Over 100 kilometres an hour. Truly, we don't know exactly how fast they can go. Some say 112. And get an ideal situation if you put them on a running track and you had something running fast enough, you may be able to get them to go a little bit quicker. Here at the park we have a winch system which we use. We drag a wee cloth along, which the cats were conditioned to chase from a very early age, so that we're not dragging meat down through dirt or anything like that. So their meat is very, very strictly controlled by thawing it in fridges, buckets are sterilised, not so much sterilised but kept very, very clean. Their feed chutes are kept clean. And it's the best quality meat that we can purchase for them.
Now, their enclosure that they're in now, what goes into planning an enclosure like this?
First of all, we have our containment standards that we have to work under, which are set by the ministry. So fences have to be so high, there has to be so many volts going through, electrics, that sort of thing. And one thing that I definitely want to do with the cheetahs is I want to make an exhibit so that they can see through it, so that they can see extra stimulation. One thing that I have found by putting them in enclosures which are enclosed is that cats can be a lot more nervous because they can't see what's going on around them. So considerations: water. They have a self-filling drinking trough over there which is scrubbed out daily. Furniture inside the exhibits, we've got shade, something that we would definitely want to provide for them. It's also a scratching post, as you can see from here.
Oh.
And this is how cheetahs or cats will mark their territory, and these two have been the result of this, and they can kill them eventually by doing this. You can see where they've been climbing up there.
Amazingly high, yeah.
Yeah, so they got their box which we use for bad weather, and all the cheetahs have a shredded paper mattress. We recycle paper from our own paper here at the park, as well as we bring it in from other places as well to donate it towards us. And that's changed quite regularly. I just keep topping it up through the winter so it gets very, very thick, and then by summer I strip it all out and they get a fresh one again next winter. And you can see from when Gemma's sitting up there today, it's a great looking post.
Why have the cheetah come into captivity? What is their main contributing factor to endangerment?
Two major reasons really. Habitat loss. These animals have unfortunately suffered a great deal of persecution, particularly from farmers, because they generally are the animal which is found out during the day, and everybody thinks that they are the ones that have taken their goats or their sheep or their cattle or whatever. So they've been persecuted by them, poisoned and shot and trapped and just removed out of a location so that they don't lose their livelihood. The other particular main issue that we've really had with them is genetic diversity inside the wild population. They believe 10,000 odd years ago there was some sort of major catastrophe inside Africa which has nearly wiped out every cheetah population except one small family related group. When I say small, we're probably looking at a couple of hundred animals. And they have since bred up and covered the whole continent, therefore the genetic diversity inside that population is very, very small. For instance, 80% of cheetahs' semen in the males can be unviable because of that inbreeding. So our captive management program is really to try and take that bottleneck out of those bloodlines. So it's a matter of the stud book analysis through the gene pool and the population demographics, which are allowing us to actually get cats that are living a lot longer with a lot less health complaints. Average lifespan for a cheetah in captivity, 10 years. Very, very short. And if they don't start reproducing very, very quickly, it's the old saying, use it or lose it.
Aaron, how did you get to be a keeper at Orana Park?
I originally started here doing work experience with the keepers for 11 months, 2 days a week, and then got offered a job through that.
And so how did you build up to be friends with the tiger?
First started here with the ungulates, like the zebras and rhinos, then went to primates, then to the carnivore section. So a lot of time working with the tigers, you build up a good bond with them.
Orana Park doesn't allow keepers, of course, to get into the enclosures, so how do you build up some form of relationship with the tiger?
We spend a lot of time with them, lots of on rainy days we may sit in here with the tigers and just interact with them. A lot of training that we do 5 days a week, which also builds up a bond with them. Generally just hanging out and getting them to trust you and you to trust them to a certain point.
And why are tigers in captivity? What's threatening these species?
They are extremely endangered. The main reason for this is a lot of loss of habitat. People are cutting down their natural environment for production of palm oils. So the way that we can try and help save these cats is pretty much steer clear of any products that have palm oils in them. Lots of it your supermarket, you can have a look on the back of the packet, and if it does have palm oils, then the best thing is to put it back. Also poaching. Unfortunately, people do like to catch and kill the tigers for their coats, and other people do believe body parts can be good for medical reasons. But the pet trade is a big problem as well. I don't know why, but people do like to take them home as a pet.
You're doing some enrichment today. Tell me what you're doing there and why you do it.
Enrichment is a really good thing for the cats, something to stimulate their mind throughout the day. The more you do, the better. We do all sorts, lots of these barrels and towels and things in their dens today, to putting out different scents in their enclosure, making up blood ice blocks, bone ice blocks, hiding meat around, putting it up trees so they have to climb for it, something that they'll naturally do. And really anything that we can think of on the day that makes a change in their environment.
What about the training? You had a tennis ball on the end of a pole there, and you had a syringe full of, I'm guessing, milk?
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
What's the purpose of that?
The tennis ball was a target. It's something for the cats to focus on throughout the training session. I was also using a peerless whistle, which is what you call the bridge between what you want the cat to do and their food reward. So what I was asking them to do was touch the target, and then they hear the whistle, which is the bridge between what you want them to do and their reward, and they get their meat. Something that they relate to really well, they relate to the whistle extremely well, and they certainly know what it's all about.
What's the physical characteristics that help them out in the wild?
Well, lots of very powerful paws and back legs, jaw power, quite quick on their feet as well. They'll ambush their prey out in the wild.
And tell me about the patterning.
That's just a form of camouflage, so they can stalk their prey without getting seen very easy.
And what's in their habitat that mimics the wild?
It is pretty hard to simulate the wild in a captive environment, but we do our best. Like, so we've got trees out there for them to climb up. We've got the pool, they'll naturally go into water and different things like that. But yeah, it's hard to bring back their natural environment.
Aaron, what kind of shampoo do you use on the tigers to keep their coats so shiny?
We don't use shampoo on the tigers. They roll around in the dirt and...
Right, and are they just like any other cat? They just keep themselves clean?
Yeah, they are. They're a really clean cat. You'll notice after Jemai's finished chewing on his bone, he'll clean himself up.
I had a cat once. It had a very rough tongue. Tell me about the tongue design on a big cat like this.
Oh, extremely coarse. Like see a cat at home, the tiger and also lion tongues are probably 4 or 5 times as coarse as that. Yeah.
And what's the purpose of that in the wild?
Lots of stripping off bones. Lots of the bone that Jemai's got now, it'll be pretty much clean by the time he's finished with it, but there'll be nothing on it.
How do you condition their claws and their teeth?
With their claws, they have got trees and stumps out in the enclosure that they'll naturally scratch at. The teeth, that'll be brought into our training program pretty soon, hopefully. We'll condition the cats to open their mouths and hopefully hold them open so we can have a good look at the teeth and also canines to make sure everything's all good there. Apart from that, it's pretty hard to see in a cat's mouth.
What's a diet of a tiger?
These boys are on 3 kilos each per day. This can either consist of horse beef, chickens, rabbits or goats. So we try and break it up into 3, maybe 4 different feeds throughout the day just to try and keep them occupied. Some days we might come in and give them the whole 3 kilos at once. Other days we might break it up throughout the day so we can hide it around places and put it in enrichment toys, and they have to work for it a bit more. But they are on chickens on a Thursday, hares on a Tuesday, which just breaks up their diet a wee bit more. We can feed them whole carcasses as well, which is really good to see, more of a natural feed. So just try and make it as interesting as we can.
LEOTC is Learning Experiences Outside the Classroom. It's a Ministry of Education initiative to provide a real learning context for what goes on in the classroom. It extends what teachers can deliver, provides facilities and resources that you couldn't hope to provide in a school. The LEOTC contract provides us with expert staff to provide all of the background information that teachers need to make the connection between what they're studying and what the students are seeing here. We are contracted to deliver science education. We obviously work into other curriculum areas as well, depending on what the teachers are after. But being a biological facility, we obviously fit the science and biology curriculum the best. What we teach is dictated by what the teacher is doing in the classroom. Each program is negotiated individually to meet what the teacher has covered, but we try to extend it so that we always got a conservation message within that as well. Science develops the program and we fit the conservation message within what the teacher has set as a context. There's sort of two aspects that make this the most rewarding job I've ever had. One is working with the kids and seeing them learn, which is what got me into teaching in the first place. Seeing them make the connections, switch on, extend what we've told them to other contexts where they're really using the learning, not just the knowledge. The second is the direct contribution to conservation, which was sort of an earlier motivation in me doing my degree and volunteer work for Department of Conservation. For anybody wanting to get into this industry, regardless of what area, you do need a sound background. There's so much that you need to know that's the specifics of doing your job that you do need to have a good biological background. So persevering through biology and the ecological aspects is really, really important.
Dens are quite different to the tiger dens. Tell me about the way these are designed.
These dens are designed so we can house two prides in here, obviously so they can't see each other, otherwise there'd be a lot of aggression between them. They can smell each other, they know each other are there, but the visual is more what you want to block out. We do rotate the two prides around the dens every day, so they get to smell each other and work out what's happening that way.
Tell me about the prides. I mean, you keep, obviously there's just two tigers, but you keep the tigers together. Tell me about the difference between the two prides and also basically what is a pride?
A pride is very unique with the lions. Lions live in a pride situation out in the wild, generally made up of the dominant male, females, elderly and young, compared to a tiger out in its natural environment will live solitary. Here at the park we have two separate prides with lots of this one here. Priscilla, one of our breeding females, with her 3 offspring. So she has one castrated male Ra, this really big one here, and then 2 females, Mika and Leah, which are also behind us as well. In the other pride we have also one of our breeding females and her 3 offspring. So she has 2 castrated males and 1 female with her.
Does Orana breed lions?
We do. Not at the moment though. Currently we don't have a breeding male. Hopefully pretty soon we'll be looking at bringing one in.
So when that breeding process is happening, do you, and you're talking about inbreeding, how do you get, or how do you select, an animal from a different zoo?
What there is a species coordinator or stud bookkeeper that looks after the species genetic wise. So we'll go to them and say, hey, we need a male to breed with. They'll look through all the genetic data and figure out the best animal at the best place genetic wise to suit our cats. Easiest way to put it, it's pretty much just a big dating agency for lions.
When the breeding process is underway, do you keep them in their prides or do you just chuck the male in with all of them?
What we've done in the past is keep the breeding male solitary, but still he can see the other cats. And we introduce the female into the male slowly. You do it between slides so they can see and smell each other. You don't just want to chuck it in there straight away, just in case something went wrong, they don't like each other. You may get some injuries from it. Generally we leave them together for a week, maybe 2 weeks, and hopefully in that time she's conceived, and then we'll put her back in with the pride. Just before she's going to have her cubs, we'll separate her again and put her into what we call cubbing dens. She'll have her cubs in there and stay with her cubs for 14 weeks. until they're vaccinated for the cat flu. They have vaccinations at 6 and 12 weeks.
And why are these guys here? Are they endangered?
They are endangered, yeah. Lots of loss of habitat is a big one. Humans are a huge problem out in their natural environment. And also disease.
What have they got in their encounter to simulate their own habitat and to stimulate them?
We try and do different feeds with them, lots of carcass feeds, whole carcass feeds, which is a really good pride feed. And we're not allowed to feed out anything live, but they do get the odd live kill out in their enclosure, like the fat peacocks that fly over the fence and don't return.
Conditioning work for a lion. Explain that to me.
We haven't done a lot of conditioning with them in the past. Really basic stuff like getting them to sit on scales is what we've been working on. Over time it may advance. 8 lions, it's going to take a lot of work.
Anyway, what we have here is 2 females, 2 castrated males. The reason why these boys haven't got a mane is because of the castration. It takes away the hormone required to grow a mane. Lions, the only social cat. All other cats are solitary animals, even domestic cats. The reason why lions are a social animal is they live in a pretty flat, treeless sort of area. It's very hard for a cat. They usually sneak up on things to get them. If they actually live on an area where ambush isn't really an option, it's hard, so they need teamwork. The girls do most of the hunting because they're faster. They work as a team. The smaller females usually take the outside. The larger females hang around the centre. The smaller, faster females drive most of the prey back into the centre. The big girls get them. If you have a look at the mane of a lion, it goes around the back of the neck, underneath the throat, down into the flanks underneath the front legs. So when 2 lions are fighting, the idea is the other male only gets a mouthful of hair and nothing else. In the wild, wildebeest, zebra, any lions can catch they will eat. Depending on the size of the pride is depending on the size of the prey. A large pride, there is a large pride in Africa who specialise on elephant. They'll take young and old sick elephants. But there is a lot of cats in that pride.
We've just been on the truck and done the lion encounter. Besides looking spectacular for visitors and obviously encouraging them to take notice of the conservation side of the lions, what's that doing for the actual lion?
It's really good for us, management-wise, you could say, like getting the cats up on the side of the cage so we can see if they have any lacerations on their body. Also a good time to have a look at their teeth if you can and their paws. If there's any injuries that we need to look at, then it's a really good time to do it. We also do it in here, like getting the cats to stand up on the mesh for us. Also the small bits of meat are good to get medication into the cats as well, because they are pretty intelligent, much like your domestic cat, they hate pills. So we slip it in the small chunks of meat and hopefully they swallow it that way.
And what does their diet consist of?
Mainly horse. We also give them goat carcasses, a little bit of beef, but it's all mainly horse.
Is there any special care that needs to be taken when they're in captivity from the likes of disease?
We don't really have any problems with disease here. There is, like so when we import new animals, MAF have a lot of regulations that you have to go through, a lot of testing before they come into the likes of the country, and they also go through a quarantine period when they get here as well.
And what physical attributes does the lion have that help them out in the wild?
Their sheer power, I'd say, yeah. And skills, well, female skills of hunting. Generally the female will do the hunting in the wild. I wouldn't say they're a very fast animal, but very efficient hunters.
Okay, any words of wisdom or advice that you could give to our students or prospective keepers?
Go for it. If it's something that you really want to do, then it's well worth doing. It's a really rewarding job.
One other question. Is there any, you work in a wildlife park in the captivity side of things. Is there any sort of field work that you have to do or extra training that's required from keepers?
There's only the captive wild animal course through Unitec in Auckland. But apart from that, you can do as much research and study as you like. the more you know about your animals, the better. Especially when it comes to conservation side of it, to try and educate people on them, and even just the day-to-day behaviours, which you learn most of that on the job. But
Now we're in front of hyena?
African wild dog, painted dog, Cape hunting dog. They've got numerous names, but yes.
And what family do they belong to?
They're out there on their own. Wild dogs, hyena, sort of branched off, so they've got their own little genus happening. So,
And why are these guys here?
these are here for mainly educational purposes. They're not a breeding group. For one, they're all females, and for people doing their zookeeping course, they know that won't work.
Are they endangered at all?
Yes, highly endangered. They're down to 3 countries in Africa. Zimbabwe being one of those countries, and no one's been there for a little while to have a look. So, wild population at the moment is basically unknown.
Now they are dogs, so they're a pack animal?
Technically they're not a dog, but they are a pack animal. They've got a very, very structured pack. These dogs, no matter if the pack is 10 dogs or 100 dogs, only one female and one male will breed.
And who's the dominant out of the male and female?
They've both got their roles. You've got a dominant male and a dominant female in the one pack.
Now they are having a go at a carcass now.
Yes.
Is this their everyday diet?
We do feed them piece meat, but a carcass is very good in the dynamics of the pack. The way these dogs are structured, the way that they hunt, it usually is a carcass they pull down, so they work together anyway. So it basically helps them with their natural behaviour.
What is their diet consisting of mainly? Are they strictly a meat eater?
Strictly carnivores. These dogs are the most successful hunters in Africa. If you look at a lion, say 20-25% success rate, these dogs run at 90%.
And what awareness is being raised? You're saying that these guys are purely for education purposes.
Yep.
With visitor interaction, what's the main message being raised for that?
With an animal like this, it's mainly to get people to think. If you can imagine, these dogs used to cover all of Africa. Now they're down to 3 countries. It's to get people to go away, adults to talk to their children, and just think about what is actually going on.
The wild dogs, is there any breeding programs going on outside of Orana?
Yes, Hamilton Zoo breeds. Some of the Australian zoos are breeding. Depends. Here it's just far too cold. These dogs are actually still in their African cycle. So they would be breeding this time of year, but this time of year in Africa it's summertime.
What safety measures are taken between when you guys go in there and when the dogs are in there?
Like all dangerous animals in this industry, there must be 2 lock gates between you and the dangerous animal. Hopefully you're clever enough to lock one of those gates, but yeah, two lock gates is a must with animals like this.
Obviously there's not really any sort of visitor interaction with these animals, so if an animal got sick, how would you go about separating that dog from the pack and also working with that animal?
If a dog did get sick, we'd take it out the back, you'd have to anaesthetise it, take it out. The problem with these dogs is putting that dog back in with the pack. You take one of these dogs out for a day, then you're in a fair bit of trouble reintroducing it.
Briefly, we were in the lion encounter with yourself. Now, you were feeding the lions through the bars. How careful do you have to be as a keeper with any form of interaction with these animals? When you are getting that close, how savvy do you have to be?
You just got to be clever enough to keep everything on the inside of the cage. So, still got them all, so you've just got to be aware of where all the animals are, and just to keep everything inside the cage, and everything should go well.
Do you have any words of wisdom or advice for anybody wanting to go from, say, a lower level into this kind of animal care?
Just be careful. Just make sure that you just do everything properly. With large carnivores, the basic principle is you stay on your side of the fence, they stay on their side of the fence. So if you just remember that, everything should be pretty sweet.
Well, that's another jam-packed, exciting week for you. If you'd like any more information on the Certificate in Basic Animal Care Science, call our team on 0800 SIT to learn. Let's see what's coming up in next week's show.
Next week, we jump over to the native section. We check out diet preparation for birds, how to amuse a cheeky Kia, why this guy likes a taste of his own eyeballs, and Tara tells us about the successes of some of the native breeding programs.